Mai ngā Wairarapa o te karu o te Maui, kărere ka pari korua mahanga te awa. Ko huru nui o rangi, ko pāpā wai, ko te ore ore, ko kumarai, ko manga kuta te whare puni, ko te whiti, ko tōku haukāinga, ko tōku whenua, ko tōku tūranga waiwai. Ko Te Ataahia Hurihanganui ahau, morena tēnā no tātou, nau mai hoki mai ki Kahurangi o Arrow FM. Ko tātou kōrero o tātou reo, ko Wairarapa tēnei. Tēnā no tātou katoa. Slight technical difficulty. Thankfully, my tohunga Michael is in the studio today. So what I was saying was welcome on in. If this is your first time to Kahurangi, I'm here holding space ko Te Ataahia tēnei o Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa o Rangitāne Hoki every Friday from 10:45 until 11:45. And I'm here as a Rangitāne Kahungunu uri, of course, and as a lover of my own community. It's really lovely to be here today in this beautiful energy of Rākau Matuhi. We will talk about the maramataka as we always do. And today's show, which is number 15, is all about the pānui o te wā. We've got a lot of newsletters and different events happening and initiatives that I need to share with you all. I have collated and gathered over the last week. But of course, we do need to start formally and officially with a karakia. Anō reira, ko tēnei te mihi aroha kia koutou ki pai tū mō kai, ki ngā rangatira kai whakairo, e mahi ana I tēnei wā tonu mō ngā pou o tērā takiwā o tātou. So this is a big mihi out to the kÄµrero group, our carvers down in Paitu Mōkai, who are still working very hard to finish and complete the number of projects and pou down in the Featherston wide area of Wairarapa. And I mihi to them because this karakia is part of their karakia collection that they use to bring in the spiritual realm and te taiao, the natural environment, into the work that they do. Nō reira, he karakia mo te ata tēnei. This is for the morning. And it's a lovely karakia around the strength that we get from the energy of the moon and the lunar phases. It also uses the bird song, which I'm sure many of us have been hearing in abundance in the last particularly few weeks as we've moved into Hine Mahuru towards Hine Raumati. And it's about letting go of the night and the darkness and welcoming in te ao, our light for today. Me karakia tahi tātou. Ka marama, takiri ko te ata, korihi ko te manu, he manu korori, he manu korora, kōrero tia mai no tua whakarere, nau mai e te ao, haere rā e te pō, e hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. Anō reira, nau mai, I know I have been speaking to a few people in our community who have been tuning in for the last few weeks. If you are wanting to catch up with any of our past episodes, you're absolutely welcome to, and that would be wonderful. And you can do so by heading over to the Arrow FM website. That's www.arrowfm.co.nz, and clicking into the program Kahurangi. You will find our videos and podcasts saved there. Of course, some of you are following my Reo Rua page on Facebook, and you can click into Reo Rua and see some of my posts in relation to some of the kōrero that I have. The last couple of weeks, of course, has been harare for our tamariki, and so I've had my two darlings, Mario and Marekura, at home with me, who were also in the studio during the last couple of sessions. We celebrated koanga and kohanga, the beginning and the, I suppose, strong energy of springtime, which many of us are feeling in a number of ways and in layered ways. Now, the lovely thing about having our tamariki in, it gave us an excuse, of course, to bring in some resources and references, and we read some wonderful puka puka, some from our local Kahurangi, Jopo, Tangaroa and others. So again, if you're wanting to get some gift ideas, I know we're getting into that gift-giving season of Natale, of Kirihimete. We're nearing Christmas, of course, so you might be thinking about some gift ideas. Puka puka and books. Stories are always a wonderful thing to gift anyone, but particularly our nohi nohi, our little ones. So they're certainly in those two programs. And today we're speaking about maramataka, which of course many of you know is my biggest passion at the moment in Te Ao Māori. And it's really thought about it because of the lunar phase we're currently in and the lunar energy that we're currently in following our big moon or full moon period, Rakaunui. So before we begin, I do want to acknowledge those new listeners by spending some time having a little bit of a chat around mihi and around mihi mihi. Before we kind of delve into some talk about well-being and rongoā in relation to maramataka. So, you would have heard my little intro, mai ngā Wairarapa. So from the sparkling and shining waters o te karu o te ika Maui, of the eye of the fish of Maui. That's of course in reference to our lake Wairarapa. Kārere ka pari ko rua mahanga te awa. So our river, of course, Rua Mahanga, which is one of our main veins through Wairarapa and the connector of a number of other smaller rivers and smaller streams. And then I mentioned a few of my marae. Now, of course, if you do have whakapapa to kahungunu ki Wairarapa and Rangitane, it's very very common and very possible that you are linked in your own unique way to all of the marae of here, because we are a relatively newer region in comparison to other regions in the north, for example, in Aotearoa. However, I did mention a few very close, marae close to my heart. Hurunui-orangi, which of course is near Te Whiti in Gladstone here in Masterton. Papawai down in Greytown. and Te Ore here in Masterton too. Now, I chose to mention those marae for a number of reasons. I have personally connected back into those marae since my return home 3 years ago. But more than that, those 3 marae are going through major changes at the moment with renovations, thanks to some funding that came in last year. And I know our whānau and community have been working hard to spruce them up and to think about the well-being of our marae and how that then affects the well-being of our people. So this really is a big shout out to everyone involved in those projects. I know Te Ore is about to open again. Hurunui Orangi is on its way, and Papawai has got a November date for their opening. So if you do whakapapa to any of those marae, or you are from our community and are wanting to show some aroha or support in any way, please head on over to their respective Facebook pages, or of course contacting them through their contact details online. Now, after that, I spoke about my tūranga waiwai, and this is what brings me to a little chat about mihi mihi, which has been quite timely because something that popped up on my social media feed today used the same theme, I suppose, and was talking about the same kaupapa. Ko tēnei nā mea te mihi mihi, me ngā mihi katoa o te ao Māori o te reo Māori hoki, o tātou ki a tātou anō hoki. So my many inspirations and learnings come from a number of other people who do similar mahi to me in the Māori education space and in the second language learning and teaching space. And one of the women I follow on social media, and I know many of our listeners follow too, is Reo Māori Mai. Reo Māori Mai, all one word. If you're looking for it on Facebook, it should just pop up. Now, she has just posted this morning, for your interest, a little blurb about mihi. Now, while I'm here, I do want to let our new beginner learners of te reo know what the word mihi actually means. If we were to translate that into English, it's simply a greeting, or the verb to greet. Now, that might be as simple as a hello, kia ora, or tēnā koe. It might be a little bit more than that. It might include a personal introduction. Kia ora, ko Te Ataahia ahau. Hello, I am Te Ataahia. Or for some, it might be more than a personal introduction and include a bit of a story. Now, that story may have a bit of whakapapa in there, some genealogy and family tree linkages and connections to past or future ancestors and mokopuna, or it might have what's called a pepeha included. Now, pepeha is simply a tribal motto, if you were looking at that in a dictionary again for the definition. But pepeha, for me, if we're trying to put that in plain English for all of us to understand, is the way in which you connect to your identity and then present that back to others, to an audience, to a listener. And so for me, a pepeha is really one's unique story and the choices one makes to then present that story. So for some, particularly Māori, that may include connections to our taiao, to our natural environment, and therefore the whakapapa, or the connections we have into natural features like our maunga, mountains, our awa, rivers, and our seas. Roto moana, and it might be bigger than that. It might be our strong standing place or sanctuary place we call home, i.e. our tūranga waiwai. So in my little mihi at the beginning of every show, I always include my tūranga waiwai, and that is Te Whiti here in Masterton. Now, some people know very well where their tūranga waiwai is, and some people are still seeking their tūranga waiwai, or still searching, and they're on a bit of an exploration journey or adventure, I like to think about it. We all have a tūranga waiwai. That's something really important that you must know, especially in Te Ao Māori. That's something we strongly believe in, that because of mana, the intrinsic power that we have within, we can stand strong somewhere, whether that's inside us or whether that's somewhere physical, a place of being on our whenua. So for me, that's of course in Te Whiti, which is why I mention that. I sometimes mention my wharepuni, which is no longer there physically, but it's certainly there spiritually, a place called Mangakuta, just down the road from Hurunui o Rangimarae and Te Whiti Whenua. Mangakuta was a place where my ancestors eventually built a whare and had all of Maui's stories depicted in whakairo and in art on the roof and on the four walls. And of course, we are descendants of Maui here in the Rangitane Kahungunu area. We're direct descendants, and that's inclusive of kupe. So some big explorers and some big learning and knowledge seekers. So I like to think about that when I'm then sharing or transferring any knowledge that I have with you, my listeners and viewers. So that's a little kōrero about the mihi that I express, but I suppose it goes back into my parallel kōrero with Reo Māori Mai today around the fact that we must acknowledge that all of us have a mihi, because all of us have an identity. And there are right ways and wrong ways to present that mihi to others in terms of understanding manaakitanga, support, tautoko, and I suppose the uplifting of others when we're presenting who we are in connection with the wider world. So if you're wanting some tips and tricks, please do connect with me. reorua.co.nz is my website, or of course on Facebook, or if you see me around Wairarapa, just come and have a little kōrero. Otherwise, Reo Māori Mai on Facebook are posting from today onwards some older posts that talk about how Pākehā or how Māori living in an area that's not their own hapu or iwi could speak about themselves in relation to where they now call home. That's a really important aspect of mihi, right? When we're trying to share our story and we're calling somewhere home, but we may not necessarily have the ancestral link to that place. How do we do that properly and appropriately and also respectfully in relation to those who are listening? Nō reira, ko tēnā noa, that's my little blurb about mihi today. Again, if anyone has any other questions, do let me know. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is a resource, and I know I've plugged this resource a number of times. I just want to remind you all that it exists. Again, we've got some new listeners today. So if you don't know about the Taringa podcast, I highly recommend it for all reo learners, or those of us who are reconnecting with our taha Māori, or those of us who are non-Māori and are wanting to learn more about our beautiful, unique culture and land. It includes a Reo Rua program, so it is in both English and in Māori, and of course headed by the tohunga Paraone Gloin, who's very, very funny and very charismatic, easy to listen to. And they do all sorts of things. They delve into iwi, they delve into pūrākau and histories, and of course they look at language features. They do have an episode specifically on mihi, and I believe it's 190. I'll come back if that's wrong and correct myself, but I think it's episode 190. You can again get some more tips there. Nō reira, e te hunga whakarongo mai ana, a ko te ataahia tēnei, nau mai ki tēnei nā te wahanga te kaumārima o Kahurangi. We're going to switch quickly to our date and maramataka reading. Ko tēnei te paraire te rua te kaumārua o ke topa rua mano rua te kaumātahi. Now that sounds like a mouthful, doesn't it? But we'd be doing it in English anyway. Friday, paraire, our date, rua te kaumārua, our month, ke topa, and then of course our year, rua mano rua te kaumātahi. So what brings me to this part is a question I get often, particularly in the education space by our kaiako and kaifakako. When do I use the Māori date and when do I use the maramataka? And it gets really confusing for me because we've actually got two time systems here in Aotearoa currently, and we have since the arrival of our Pākehā tūpuna in the 1700s. And so it's important that we understand how important, well, I suppose it's important that we understand how empowering it is to know that we've got those two systems and then acknowledging them in the right, correct, appropriate ways. If we are going to present the date in any way, whether that's on our whiteboards in class, in our diaries, when we are conversing or interacting with others, we are most likely going to be referring to what we call the Gregorian time system or calendar. And that's a calendar we all know, the 7 days a week, 12 months a year, 365 days a year calendar. That is a solar system. It follows the sun's movements, when the sun gives us light and dark, and when the sun gives us night and day, hence why we've got things like clocks and a 24-hour window of time. And that's the way we kind of section it out, and then, of course, go about our everyday lives according to that time. Now, we have actually got Māori language for that. That was developed in the 70s, 80s and 90s during the kind of beginnings of the revitalisation of Te Reo Māori and our, of course, language petition to Parliament. That was developed, agreed upon by Tohunga Rangatira Reo Māori at Te Taurawhiri o Te Reo Māori, our Language Commission in Wellington. And they are transliterations. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Taite, Friday, Paraire, Saturday, Hatare, and so on and so forth. Now, transliterations are just Māori sounding English words, but using Māori alphabet or Māori sounds. Yeah? Hence why I've done that today. And then, of course, we've got the date, which we translate into Te Reo Māori, so 22, Rua Tekau Marua. And then we've got the month, which we also transliterate, October, Oketopa. We then move into November, Noema, and so on and so forth. Then I get the kind of follow-up question usually by my kaiako, when do we use the other Māori months? And I think what they're referring to is a wonderful song by Timoti, and it's a song about the Maramataka Māori and how one might connect the Māori months, i.e. the lunar calendar months, with the English calendar. Now, it's important that if you're following me in my Maramataka journey, that you start to understand that actually the language from the Maramataka Māori should only be used in reference to the Maramataka Māori, i.e. there are two time systems, so transliterations for the Gregorian system and Māori months for the Maramataka Māori. I hope that makes sense. So we're not in Oketopa at the moment. If we're following Maramataka, what we do is we say what the lunar phase is currently. And right now, according to my reading and the readings of the resources that I'm using, i.e. the Tuhi Stationery and, of course, Rangi Mā Tāmua's Living by the Stars reading, we are currently in Rākau Matohi. So Rākau Matohi is today's lunar phase, and we'll be in Rākau Matohi until the next moon rises or the next lunar phase rises, which I believe we're expecting later on today. Now, Rākau Matohi is followed by the Māori month. And the Māori month at the moment is Whiringa Ānuku. Whiringa Ānuku means to sow into Papatuānuku. So it's a huge growing, grounding month. It's a really good month to start thinking about and getting into your garden and the kai that you want to put in there. Hopefully frosts have completely disappeared, but we know in our region that that's not always the case. So if you're still worried about frost, you can get things into your garden, but just think about how you might protect things and keep them warm. The other thing I want to mention here is that we're warming up. So, get out and about, make sure you're going for your walks, you're connecting with nature, and in particular with our whenua, with Papatuānuku. Now, I'm going to read a couple of our readings, as I always do, and then we're going to head over to a waiata. Nō reira, ko tēnei te kōrero o tuhi, ngā rātaka o Tuhi Stationery, mō Rākau Matohi, me whai tikanga, he rā miharo. Kei te tūwheranga mea katoa ki a koe, he nui te makurutanga o te wai, o te whenua, o te wahine hoki. Nō reira karawhiua. So this is telling us to make the most of this time. It's high energy, it's abundant, and it's full of positivity. It's especially great for being in the water, on the whenua, and around feminine energy. Whakatau ngā whāinga wā poto, he wā hoki mō te karakia. He wā anō hoki mō te tipi haere. So it's a great time to be travelling around, exploring, connecting with others. Me whakawhetai, me puta ki te tai ao, he wā mātātoa. He wā kore moe nā te nui me te maha o ngā whakaaro. Ma whero, ma pango ka oti ai te mahi. So it's a big mahi time. If you are a diver or a fisher, it's particularly good for you. And of course, for our gardeners and green thumbs out there. The other reading that I bring you today is from our Rātaka o Te Marama. And again, if you haven't tuned in before, this can be found at allright.org.nz/maramataka. It's a dial that allows you to connect our Gregorian calendar directly with the maramataka. Anei ngā kōrero mo rākau matohi. So high energy, fishing and planting in abundance, a productive day for completing mahi, getting things done and starting new projects. Be active or connect with whānau. Now, I do want to whakakapi e nei ngā kōrero te maramataka, conclude these kōrero with a beautiful song from our lovely Hirini Melbourne, who sadly has passed, but his waiata and his puoro live forever and ever with us and with our mokopuna. Ko tēnei, ko pipi whārauroa, nā Hirini Melbourne.
Pipi whārauroa, nau tō mai te mahana. Kia pua wai ngā rākau, kia rere te kakara. Tioro, tioro, tioro te kohanga. Kui, kui, kui te raumati. Kui, 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 whiti, whiti ora. Whiti, whiti ora.
Tēnā anō tātou katoa. So if you're just tuning in to Kahurangi today, ko te Ataahia tēnei, lovely to have you here. We've just been talking about maramataka, and unfortunately we've been having a bit of technical difficulty in the studio. So if you have been trying to watch this, or you come back in to try and catch up with the visuals, you may not see me, but I'm hoping that you're listening and that you have access to the podcast from now on. Of course, most of what I speak about I summarise in a little post on my Facebook page, Reurua, so that's another way you can connect in with us. Hirini Melbourne spoke about the pipi whārauroa, and we've certainly talked about the different springtime connections and symbols and tohu that make up our taiao and everything that's going on at the moment. And again, I just wanted to talk about rako matohi today because of what's happening in my own maramataka journey and connecting in with myself and with the lunar phases and the energies. So, yeah, that's what today's all about, the different pānui going around, our well-being, and the way that I interpret that and talk about that in my own circles and in my own networks. And I have a few things to share that are in relation to those topics. So, I suppose the first thing I want to do is acknowledge some really amazing mahi that is happening in our adult education space. Anō reira, ko tēnei wā he tika me mihi atu au ki tētahi o tātou kahurangi o Wairarapa, arā ko mā kuini kerehi tērā. Tēnā koe e te kahurangi, e te maraikura, meo mahi matua I Reap Wairarapa, I ēnei tau, I ēnei rā, I ēnei wā tonu. This is a big mihi out to mā kuini kerehi, who has for a very long time been heading and leading Māori mātauranga and education at Reap Wairarapa. And we are currently in a time where and when we are being offered workshops that may not be full courses. So if we are the type of learner who is looking for a new skill or some new knowledge, but maybe are a bit time poor, Reap Wairarapa is currently offering some incredible opportunities for us to tap into certain topics or kaupapa that aren't going to mean a long-term commitment, i.e. going to a lesson or a session for an hour or a couple of hours every week for a long time. So if that sounds like you're time poor, but you're really wanting to learn and you may not have the ability to commit long-term or to something that is a formal qualification, but you're really looking for a new skill or new knowledge, head over to reapwairarapa.nz/courses and have a look at the different offerings. Now, I was really, really lucky this week. I am going along to the Sunday afternoon waiata sessions, which are held at Haukainga, and it is a great way to connect through singing, to learn all about the craft and the art and the creative process of singing with others and in a group. And of course, a great way to be doing that in te reo Māori and learning some more pūrākau and history through those waiata. From there, I went into my kōrero sessions on Tuesday for any learners of te reo Māori in our community. We are through Reap Wairarapa, with me as facilitator, running some online kōrero sessions. They are koha entry, and they are every week on a Tuesday from 12 p.m. until 1 p.m, so the lunch break. The idea is eventually out of level 2, if we ever do change into that traffic light system, we will be meeting in person, but it's a casual space that I hold for all learners and speakers of te reo, preferably those of us who have had a bit of knowledge or learning in past, who are wanting to put that learning into practice. So kōrero is the aim of the game, speaking in a total immersion setting. Now online we do things like play quizzes, we have a mihi, we talk about resources, and we just look at everyday things to give us the opportunity to of course build our vocabulary and our confidence. So if that's something you're interested in, contact Makuine at Reap Wairarapa. And then of course from there followed into my Wednesday, which was a particular Wednesday, and it was one very much associated with our maramataka. I followed the call of my tūpuna and the energy that the taia was telling me. I cancelled certain commitments that I had so that I could follow my iwi, and some big changes happening down at my hapu of Ngāti Moe on our marae. Part of that day, was kōrero and very important discussions about possible changes happening, etc. And part of the day was a beautiful few hours spent on our whenua, doing some marakai. Now, the next working bee is going to be on the 2nd of November, again via Reap Wairarapa, or via the Pāpāwai people, if it's easier for you to contact Ngāti Moe directly. Our tohunga marakai, Michael Roera, is sharing his knowledge in the marakai, and we were very, very lucky to go out there and plant kumara. So it got me thinking about well-being and how incredibly important it is that we, as Māori in particular, remember how much healing comes from being connected to our whenua, whether that's going for a stroll, going for a visit to our places of significance, whether that's reconnecting into our marae, or whether it's simply gardening and touching the whenua that we have a unique ancestral connection to. So that rongoa was really beautiful. It was needed in that time for me. It was a way for me to let the elements kind of wash away any raruraru, any wanga, any pō raruraru that I had sitting on me physically. For me to physically connect in with Papa Tuanuku under my fingers, and to think about rongo maraeroa and rongo mātāne, tāne mahuta, haumia tike, all of our atua who are in that realm of kai, of sustenance, and to really get stuck in, physical taha tinana activity, to feel better and to feel well, and I certainly did. And so this is a big shout out to Uncle Michael down at Pāpāwai, and also to Makuine. Again, if you're looking to get stuck in yourselves, please do. And you can contact Reap Wairarapa directly for other courses. So those marakai, we've got 2 more coming up in November, but there are others like stone carving, raranga, weaving, and so on and so forth. Ai, koina ngā pānui o tēnei wahanga. The other thing I wanted to do is reference one pukapuka we read last time together again. And another one that I'm going to read later on in the show. The first one is Te Marakaya Koro that Mario Kapua presented to us last time. So if you are watching in now, I hope our visual's working, but you'll see some just beautiful, beautiful photos of our koro and kuia here with their mokopuna who are planting things. So it just reminds us that, you know, planting and gardening, you don't need to be an expert, and you certainly don't need much space. You know, if you've got a little patch of land, and even if you don't create one in pots, this is the season to trial and error, you know, to give things a go, whether it's by borrowing seeds from a friend or by buying them cheaply at our supermarkets or our garden barn, Mitre 10, etc. And then involving our younger generations and making sure that they know and that they are empowered by the idea that our kai can come from our own hands in relationship with Te Taiao. There's something really unique about that empowerment that we can give to our tamariki. And I know many of our ECE centres are doing it, but certainly this is the encouragement to our whānau listening in who may be parents or grandparents about involving our tamariki in that space. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the rākau matohi, energy from, I suppose, more scientific point of view in relation to our emotions and energy. So rākau nui, which was yesterday, and rākau matohi, which is today. You can actually hear a Rangi Mā Tāmua video that has just gone up early this morning in relation to the rise of the moon and its positioning if you were looking at the moon and looking at the sun at the same time. So that scientific idea of how they coexist and how they have a relationship in the sky to each other, and that's how we can kind of click into it and understand the syncing of that and how everything else is interconnected with that relationship up in the sky here on the land. So that's on Living by the Stars Facebook page, Dr. Rangi Mā Tāmua, our tohunga maramataka. I have certainly felt a pull. I know that myself and Amber Craig and Aihania Tipoki a few months ago during lockdown had the opportunity to have a chat and conversation about those unique energies of the different lunar phases. And this here, our big energy, which started a few nights ago with Ohua, our fertility moon, are certainly big moons. And I know Amber spoke about how often the energy will amplify any emotion we have, whether that's a good emotion or a bad emotion, a happy emotion or a sad emotion. So I know I've been quite tired lately, and certainly Amber's caught it or resonated with me this time round because I've been exhausted, physically weak. It's been really hard for me to open my eyes in the morning and kind of get out of bed, that kind of heaviness of tired. And I certainly know that rākau nui has been doing that to me. And so I've been really mindful that if I've had a tohu from a tūpuna or from my iwi or a call from a friend or whānau member to slow down and maybe switch off the net or to go for a walk, I've been definitely responding to those mindfully in relation to my well-being and making sure that I keep myself healthy. I've been drinking lots and lots of water and lots of herbal teas, lots of cleansing teas, just to give me the energy, because I am feeling so tired. It's hard for me to eat at the moment, so that what I am nourishing myself with is good energy, good sugars from our fruit and from our vegetables, etc. The other thing I've noticed is how it's affected my baby. So Mario, who's quite sensitive, he's been really, really sensitive in the last couple of days. So we've been mindful of the way we're communicating with him, with our words, that we're gentle, that we're affectionate, and that we drop down to his level when we're talking to him, kanohi ki te kanohi, so that he feels heard and acknowledged, even when he might be in a state of feeling like a bit of a haututu, like he's maybe annoying us or doing something he knows he shouldn't be doing, and possibly causing frustration for others. We're making sure that we're gentle in the way that we might guide him through that. Mareikura has been quite high in energy and really, she's 3, very fun and very funny. And so again, with Rākau Nui, that's been amplified. We've been kind of watching the levels of that fun and energy, say in the evening, and trying to mitigate it being too hypo, because of course it gets hard for bedtime for her to then calm down. So things like a bit of lavender oil in the bath has helped, making sure, she's not watching a device or TV or anything like that in our afternoons. Not that we do anyway, but really making sure she's only interacting with us or with Te Taiao in those last few hours before going down for moi. And then, of course, being mindful of what kinds of stories and books we're reading before we put her to bed. So those are just some tips and tricks around how you might, work with the Rākau Nui energy. And it was funny, I was looking at Facebook earlier to see what my mates are up to. And Deb Davidson, who I know many of you know, our lovely Whaia here in Wairarapa in Masterton, was talking about how she follows the Rākau Nui like a crazy fan, and we're the same in our household, Deb. Every month we really make a point to go and look at Rākau Nui and Rākau Matohi's rising, and if not at night we go and just kind of look up and gawk and in awe at the moon's light. That's something else you might want to do, create a little ritual for you and your whānau. And really marvel at how incredibly beautiful the moon is at the moment, and it's light at night, so no night light needed in our whare. Last night we had the moon's light, and I made sure, which I'm going to talk about in our next rongoā section, to charge my yoni eggs. Those of us who are practicing maramataka rituals will know what yoni eggs are. Ai, koina tēnā. I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. Rangi mā tāmua. Our readings, we've talked about the dates and which dates are appropriate in the way we speak about the 2 time systems in Te Reo Māori. And I really want to switch to a song that I know I've played a couple of times on here before. It's one of my favourite songs, one of my favourite artists, Mai Sirika. She popped up in my dream last night, and I literally woke up singing her song in my head. Nō reira, ko tēnei a Mai Sirika, me waiti waita. Whakarongo mai. No mai o ki mai ki Kahurangi o Arrow FM ko Te Ataahia tēnei. We're speaking maramataka and the rako nui rako matohi energies that we're currently in relation to our well-being and rongoa. We've spoken about the connection back to our whenua, to te taiao and to our marae. So I did want to quickly segue very, in a succinct way, if you like, into a number of pānui, and I hope that it's not too fast and that you're writing down or noting down anything of interest. So, Haukainga, which is where Te Pātukituki used to live, around the corner from our art corner in Masterton. So down by Arotoi, follow New World along the side, and then you get to the corner and you'll see Haukainga, a big sign out the front. We have been very privileged to have an exhibition of each of our marae in residence. So at the moment it's Pāpā Wai Marae, who today at 12 p.m. will hand over to Te Oreore Marae, and that will officially open next Friday. So next Friday at 12 p.m. Te Oreore will take over that space with their beautiful exhibition. If you're wanting to go and interact with that exhibition, please do. It supports the people who have been putting that together for a very long time. Now, the other thing, of course, is talking about Te Kauma Iwa. So some of you may have tuned into today's 10 a.m. National Press Conference with Jacinda Ardern and other ministers. We are very close to changing our strategy from an elimination strategy into what's called a protection strategy. Now, I'm not here to be political, so if you are wanting to know the details of the national changes to our alert systems and, of course, to our COVID response system, please check into your news outlets, however you may do that. However, locally, Te Kauma Iwa have a couple of hauora clinics happening over the weekend. So the first thing to note is Te Kauma Iwa is open to anyone and everyone. They are not exclusive. However, they are wanting to prioritise Māori patients or general public, people who need and want to get vaccinated. Te Kauma Iwa, who are open behind the Whaiora building on the main road there, Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You don't need a booking, but it is, of course, advised to book, and you can do that very quickly either through the website or by calling Whaiora. Now, at McJorrow Park between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. this Saturday, the 23rd of October, we are going to be, or not we, Te Kauma Iwa, in relationship with a number of our other health entities here in Wairarapa whānui, including Whaiora, of course, are holding another hauora campaign. There will be nurses there for free assessments. Free kai is on hand, and if you're wanting or needing to get a jab or some information about the COVID vaccination, you can go along to that. It's absolutely free to the public from 2 till 6 p.m. this Saturday. Likewise, down at Lake Onoke from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. the same thing, however, on Sunday. And they're looking at not only vaccinations, but of course getting the right information out to their community. So if you can't make it up to Masterton and you struggle to get into the towns, Lake Onoke will be having that hauora clinic. You can find all of this information, of course, on the Te Kauma Iwa Facebook page or by connecting in with your local GPs. Last but not least, we have a lovely wahine Māori in our midst at the moment who does not have whakapapa to our whenua here, but has connections up north. And her and her tāne have moved here about 5 years ago and have created a bit of a sanctuary out on some whenua. And they're working the land, so they are people who live through marakai and through huapara kore principles, and of course through maramataka practices. And I just wanted to give a big shout out to my friend Leonie Williams, who may be listening in today, who of course helped me, supported me through our mahi yesterday down at Pāpā Wai. She, through her Facebook page Ruia He Kākano, and her tāne, with some of their connections, hold working bees and wānanga sessions that are very casual. They're kind of unplanned and a chance for connection with each other and with the whenua on Wednesdays and on Sundays. So if that's sounding like a an initiative, a group, a wairua that you're wanting to connect in with, I highly recommend and encourage you connecting in with Ruia He Kākano on Facebook when and if you can over the coming days for Wednesdays and Sundays, working with Kai and with Mara. Let me just check my notes and make sure I've covered everything off. He tino mihi tēnei ki a koe, Leonie. I know you're listening in today. While you may not be one of our local kahurangi in terms of whakapapa, you certainly are one of our local kahurangi because of your wairua and the beautiful energy that you bring with you into our community. We're absolutely privileged to have you and your tāne here, and it's been lovely connecting with you over the past few days. He rongoa nui o mahi. So, thinking about healing and well-being, let us remember that connection with each other and connection with the earth, but also connection with knowledge and prioritising transfer of knowledge and making sure that's accessible to all. That in itself is a rongoa and healing. So while I'm here, I want to mention Whaia Maraia's rongoa kōrero that came out through Ko Wairarapa tēnei during our lockdowns, and the reminder to all of us that, we may not be a rongoa practitioner, or we may not believe in traditional rongoa, or we may not at all believe in medicine or in Western ways of healing. So it's, I think, important for us to start to reflect on what is healing for us and what is going to work for us. And every individual will have their own answer in response to that. But what Whaia Maraia reminded us of is one really powerful thing, in that we can get a lot of rongoa in healing from our kai, from the food that we are putting into our mouths and that we are consuming for sustenance, for survival, but also to thrive in life, and that we have power over that. And it reminds me of a saying, one of the things that we have complete control over, complete sovereignty over, is what we put in our mouth. No one else can control what goes into my mouth. So if we use that philosophy and that idea, what is it that we're putting into our mouth? Is it good for our bodies? Is it good for, sustainability? Is it good for my whānau community, etc.? And it brought me to another kahurangi, another gem that we have in the community, and that's our rangitane education plan and resources that are attached to that plan. You can find this on rangitaneeducation.com. I've referenced it a number of times for pūrākau and history, but the lovely thing about this resource is it has a number of things that you can click into to learn more about our environment and about kai and rongoa in general. So if you click into the website, go to the environmental section, you have access to a whole lot of education plans that include Ngāti Hamua and Kai Resource. This is a kai kit that was developed and presented in 2016. I'm just going to read the intro for you. The Ngāti Hamua and Kai book has been produced to introduce all people to the kinds of food our ancestors ate for hundreds of years. Well, most of them, because some have arrived in the last 200 years. All of the foods are still available locally, and with the exception of endangered, wildlife and poisonous berries can be gathered and sampled according to seasonal availability. Some of the food is a bit smelly or could taste a bit funny, but most is good for you. There are a few that have quite a lot of sugar, but they are very yummy. If you're a kid, take an adult out and look around for the trees, plants, birds and fish. You don't have to hurt anything, just see if you can spot them. Only a selection of foods have been highlighted in this book. Many others were used, especially when more variety became available with the arrival of people from different lands. Yet, one way or another, some of our people have continued to enjoy both the foods that were once abundant naturally and those that have become commonplace through introduction. A simple Google search on the internet can provide more information, of course, and recipes. But just try typing and see where you go. Please give the foods a go, although it is even satisfying to observe when different native plants and trees yield best so that you can, make the most of their bounty. So that's the introduction I unquote for the Ngāti Hamua and Kai resource kit that you can find on the Rangitane Education website. And of course, if you click into that, you learn all about our local food sources. And so hopefully we'll give you some tips and tricks as to what you might want to start planting and when in relation to our maramataka. Now, talking about food sovereignty, about hua parakore, about how we can sustain ourselves, and of course using kai and similar practices for our own well-being and healing. Coming up for the Organics Week down in Featherston on Thursday the 28th of October. There is a beautiful event happening for Organics Week called Hua Parakore, Indigenous Food Sovereignty, and they're doing a number of things, including a bit of a talk about the book with the same title, Hua Parakore. So if that's, again, sounding like your thing, Dr. Jessica Hutchins will be there to discuss and answer any questions you have about our Māori view, I suppose, on Hua Parakore. That's the no waste philosophies and the getting into our organics and land and food sovereignty. And Claire Bleakley, who's heading that, can answer any of your questions on 027 348 6731. That's Claire Bleakley on 027 348 6731. Or, of course, I'm sure you know about the Organics Aotearoa New Zealand website or the Organics Featherston page on Facebook. Whew, that was a lot of pānui. I'm going to break us up really quickly. We've only got 5 minutes left with another waiata. And this song is all about healing using wai. Absolutely stunning singer Holly Smith with Kōrukutia from Bathe in the River Don McGlashan. Tēnā tātou.
Manung mengkorapana tukuna imbawe akera iyo kãှrero hai atura
Let that play in the background. I absolutely love that song. That's Holly Smith with Kōrukutia, Don McGlashan's Bathe in the River. I'm sure many of us can recognise it. A healing in itself for me is listening to waiata. Let's make the most of the Te Rākau Matohi energy tātou mā as we head into the weekend and get vaccinated. If it's not your thing, go and get some information at our Hauora clinics at Lake Onoke or at McDorrow Park in Masterton. Hopefully see you in the coming weeks at these many beautiful events that we have happening around the the region, or of course with the community initiatives like Leonie's Ruia He Kākano. I might go and pour myself a bit of a tea with some kumara peel. Apparently that's a rongoā in itself, and I haven't quite tried it, so there's another tip. If you're wanting to know a bit of information around a wānanga that is taking place in the upcoming weeks via Ohua, our local ECE centre, please get in touch with myself or with Dee. She has all of her details on the Ohua Facebook page at the moment for that wānanga about tamariki and about the growth and development of Māori tamariki in relation to parenting philosophies from our tūpuna. But I'm going to let Holly Smith finish us off for the day. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Tēnā no tātou katoa, ko tātou reo, o tātou kōrero, ko Wairarapa, tēnei.